I think for generating ideas, you really need to let yourself walk all the way around the problem and not be focused on the same things that people who have tried to address the need in the past have focused on. If you can find a way to look at the problem in a different way than others have in the past, then you can really generate some interesting concepts that are different from what's currently out there.
When you walk in the first brainstorming room and you have all these white walls and you're trying to go for quantity, you start to recognize that you know very little and you need to go back and learn more. Not just about the anatomy or physiology, but also about the problem itself and the best ways to solve it.
We did question storming in addition to brainstorming. We tried to actually just have sessions where all we were doing was throwing out questions, trying to really capture everything we would want to know in order to be able to generate as good a concept as possible.
We tend to work best when we knew what the plan for the brainstorming session was. So a lot of the times, we would have certain brainstorming sessions where we would throw out wild ideas and try to connect as many disparate things as possible. And then we had other brainstorming sessions where we kind of drilled down on a little bit more details of the design.
What we found helpful was to always start off looking at the problem and thinking of different causes to the problem as a start. And then the next brainstorm would focus on one cause of the problem and how we can solve that one cause maybe.
We could only do pretty much maybe 2 brainstorming sessions a day just because it's so mentally tiring.
Brainstorming sessions shouldn't last beyond 40 minutes or 45 minutes for me, at least for me. Because after 40 or 45 minutes, you would be stagnant.
Our brainstorm sessions were usually no longer than half an hour. At that point, we started recognizing that we weren't being productive. It was getting a little bit frustrating.
Doing it in the morning, have a lot of coffee, sugar, sweets to do it. Everyone should focus and not bring in, basically have their whole minds and heart into the session. It's just probably an hour or so. So no phones, no laptops. We usually we use a lot of Post-its and we stand up and do it.
Try to change the settings that you are in. If you always go into the same room, then you kind of always might end up thinking the same kind of stuff.
Well, it helped to be able to bucket concepts into similar groups, and then there were some groups we could just rule out immediately, and that made it easier to not have to go through 60 concepts individually. So grouping helped, and then usually we'd have one team member who was taking the lead on that project present to the rest of the group what they thought of which concepts were most viable, which ones needed a little bit more digging to see if there was some potential there, and then which ones were not going to go anywhere.
To capture the output of the brainstorms, we took pictures with our iPhones and then sent them around. And then we put that information into a mind map of a bunch of different ideas. And the mind map really helped us to determine where there were areas where we needed to focus in on coming up with more ideas, areas that we've missed.
My advice would be don't get discouraged by recognizing the things that you don't know and feeling like you don't have good solutions, but taking that and using it as fuel to figure out what the good solutions are.
Be open to solutions that at first blush you think won't work.
Bring in people who know nothing about what you're talking about, because they can say one thing that leads you to another. So I find that seemingly very random connections can be really helpful. So I cast a wide net.
And the most important thing is to give respect to the other's ideas.